Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're going to completely change the way you look at a simple patch of grass, or, those trees just sitting outside your window. We are about to take a microscopic tour inside a bustling, brilliant, and entirely biological factory, one that literally works tirelessly, day and night, to keep almost everything on our planet alive. I mean, really think about it. What is a plant actually doing all day long? If you just glance at a houseplant in the corner of your room, you'd probably think the answer is absolutely nothing. They just sit there, passively soaking up some rays, right? Well, wrong. Beneath that quiet, still exterior, they are actually working overtime. They're running complex chemical engineering processes, they're pumping fluids against gravity, and generating the very fuel that powers our entire world.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at the blueprint for our tour today. We'll start with 1, the silent green factory. Then 2, photosynthesis, the solar panels. 3, xylem and phloem, nature's plumbing. 4, respiration, unlocking the energy. And finally, 5, the global life support. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the silent green factory.
So stepping through the front doors of our factory, let's see exactly how it organizes itself from the ground up to manufacture its own food. Every great factory is built from fundamental, repeating units, and a plant is absolutely no different. Life here begins at the microscopic level with just a single cell. Then, similar cells join up to form tissues. Those tissues work collaboratively to build organs, which for a plant means leaves, stems, and roots. And finally, all those different organs work together in complex systems to create the entire living organism. It's a complete, self-sufficient production line.
Now here's the kicker. Unlike us humans, or any other animals for that matter, this factory relies on exactly no one else. We are what biologists call heterotrophs, which basically just means we depend on other organisms for our food. We have to go to the grocery store. Plants, on the other hand, are autotrophs. Auto means self, and troph refers to nourishment. They make their own food completely from scratch. This factory is entirely 100% self-reliant. Moving on to section 2, photosynthesis, or the solar panels. To understand exactly how they pull off this incredible feat of self-reliance, we need to travel up to the plant's solar panels, the leaves. So the crucial point here is this magical recipe we call photosynthesis. The word literally means making food using sunlight. The plant pulls in carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil. Then, using sunlight captured by the green pigment chlorophyll, it powers a reaction that converts those raw materials into glucose, which is just a simple sugar. And as an amazing bonus byproduct, it spits out the oxygen that we all breathe. Now you might be wondering, how on earth does a leaf just grab carbon dioxide out of thin air? Well, if you look at the underside of a leaf under a microscope, you'll find thousands of these tiny little pores called stoma. Think of these as the factory's dynamic air vents. Each single stoma is controlled by 2 bean-shaped guard cells, and these guard cells actually inflate and deflate to open and close the pore. They usually open up during the day to gulp in carbon dioxide, and then close up tight at night to conserve moisture. Of course, science isn't just about taking my word for it, right? We can actually prove this factory is pumping out food. See, plants store their excess glucose as starch. So to test for that starch, we can take a green leaf, boil it in water, and then boil it in alcohol. That strips away the green chlorophyll. Once the leaf is pale, we wash it off and drop on a little iodine. Almost instantly, the leaf turns a deep blue-black color. It's undeniable, visual proof that photosynthesis actually happened and starch was successfully manufactured. And we can use that exact same starch test to prove exactly what inputs the factory absolutely needs. Say you mask part of a leaf with black paper and leave it out in the sun. Later, only the exposed parts will turn blue-black with the iodine. The covered part stays pale. Proving sunlight is a total must-have. Or, if you put a plant inside a sealed bell jar with potassium hydroxide, which is a chemical that actively sucks carbon dioxide out of the air, the plant will produce absolutely zero starch. Without carbon dioxide, the assembly line completely shuts down. All right, that brings us to section 3, xylem and phloem, nature's plumbing. So the food is made, but now the factory faces a massive logistical nightmare. How does it transport those vital goods and all that water from the soil across its entire sprawling structure? And this brilliantly illustrates the solution: 2 dueling microscopic highways running up and down the plant. First, we have the xylem. These are actually tubes made of completely dead cells, and their sole job is to haul water and minerals up from the roots to the leaves. Right next to them is the phloem. These are living cells forming a massive distribution network,
moving that freshly manufactured food from the leaves to all other parts of the plant, including all the way back down to the roots. You can actually see this plumbing in action right in your own kitchen. If you take a celery stalk and place it in a glass of water dyed red, just leave it there for a few hours. When you come back and cut the celery in half, you will clearly see these bright red tubes running right up the inside. Those are the xylem vessels. They act like microscopic straws, actively pulling water upwards against the force of gravity to keep those leaves hydrated.
And what about the food distribution? Well, we can observe the food-carrying phloem through what's known as a ringing experiment. Phloem tissue sits just underneath the bark of a plant. So if you carefully remove a ring of bark from a stem, you completely sever that phloem highway, but you leave the deeper xylem intact. Over time, the area just above the cut will physically swell up. Why? Because the food traveling downwards from the leaves gets stuck. It just pulls up in the tissue because its road has been destroyed.
Which leads us to a fascinating twist in Section 4. Respiration, unlocking the energy. Okay, so the factory has made its food and it's transported it. But here's where we encounter a massive, often misunderstood twist in our tour. Making food is not the same as using energy. We usually think of plants strictly as oxygen producers, right? And for sure, they are. But to actually unlock the energy stored inside the glucose they just made, plants also have to breathe in oxygen, just like you and I do. This is called respiration. It's the process of breaking down that manufactured food using oxygen to release the raw energy required for growth and survival.
If you take a peek into the plant's engine room, the equation for respiration is going to look incredibly familiar. It's essentially the photosynthesis equation running in reverse. The plant takes the glucose it made, combines it with oxygen, and breaks it all down. This releases the energy the plant needs to live, and as a result, it spits out carbon dioxide and water vapor as waste products. So think of it like this. Photosynthesis stores the energy, respiration unlocks it. And again, we can prove this engine is running in real time if you take a handful of actively growing germinating seeds, put them in a sealed beaker next to a small cup of lime water. Something amazing happens overnight. The lime water turns this cloudy, milky white color. In chemistry, lime water turning milky is the absolute classic test for the presence of carbon dioxide. Those little seeds are actively respiring, they're burning through their stored food, and they are literally exhaling carbon dioxide right before our eyes.
Let's zoom out for our final stop, Section 5, the global life support. As we reach the end of the line today, we need to step out of the microscopic world for a second and look at the macro impact. What does this one silent green factory actually mean for the rest of the planet? Well, the reality is, without this machinery, almost all life on Earth would simply cease to exist. First, photosynthesis provides the foundational food source for all herbivores, and by extension, the carnivores that eat them. Second, it constantly replenishes the oxygen that every single breathing animal relies on to survive. And crucially, by continuously trapping carbon dioxide, plants are constantly regulating our atmosphere, keeping the Earth from overheating by absorbing the greenhouse gases released by decomposition and the burning of fuels. It is just a beautifully balanced system of inputs and outputs, perfectly engineered by nature. So, I'm going to leave you with this thought today. Next time you walk outside and look at a simple green leaf, will you just see a plant sitting passively in the dirt, or will you see it for what it truly is, a bustling, working, life-saving machine? Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I will see you in the next explainer.